Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the second unofficial trial of the podcast. I appreciate whether you're watching live or if you are watching this recorded later on. I appreciate you showing up and giving it a look-see. I am your host, Steve, and wanted to get on here tonight and talk about a few things, but mostly came on to test out some new equipment. I got me a new camera here, so hopefully my picture might be a little bit better. And got a ring light, so I can light up the place a little bit better. And what else? I upgraded the stream there, so I now have the ability to stream on multiple platforms. So tonight I am live on Facebook here, also on my YouTube page, my YouTube channel, as well as the Instagram page. So you're able to watch me on any of those. And I moved my TV monitor back behind this camera so that hopefully it doesn't look like I look away too much. Still going to because like I said, I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't have a producer. I don't have somebody that can run this thing for me. So I'm trying to get this microphone right so that I can. It sounds good for you. But yeah, so we're live tonight, and don't know how long I'll be on here, but hopefully got some interesting stuff to talk to you about. It's kind of another impromptu session. Just again, like I said, mostly wanted to check out my platforms and see how it goes to those, so that I can make sure that I can send you guys to the right places. And so I appreciate we got some watchers there. I appreciate you, Akai and Ed. Thanks for showing up. I can only see you if you comment. This doesn't allow me to see who all's watching, so it shows me how many people are watching, but doesn't show me who's watching. I have to see that within the platforms themselves. So, um, glad you guys are here tonight. I was going to talk a little bit. I think I said on the Facebook page, going to talk a little bit about the changes in law enforcement over the last 25 years. Um, and trying to get this camera set for you, but without showing you my entire background. I do have a flag on the way. You can see I'm not using the virtual background, so there's not a lot of pixelating. I got a comment on that from somebody who runs a podcast and didn't want to lose anybody because of that. So we're doing it. I got a flag on the way that's going to go behind me, and you can tell I upgraded my page because up there in the right hand corner, or maybe your left, I don't know, is my logo. So I could add that. So yeah, moving along here, getting things ready. Should be around, well, actually, like 4 days, I should be able to attach this to my actual, the Blue Truth and Bourbon Facebook page, and then we can go on that instead of my, actual homepage, and then the rest of the people who are maybe not friends of mine, but are on the page can actually watch it, and viewership goes up a little bit. Not that I care, I'm not doing it to get views as much as I'm doing it just to, have a little fun, maybe reach some people, do some entertainment, and, have a little bit of, fun with it, maybe some education. So, uh, got something here I'll show you real quick. I know, obviously it's called Blue Truth and Bourbon. And if I can figure this thing out here real quick, we'll show you my, what I wanted for Christmas. Buffalo Trace. I've never been Buffalo Trace bourbon. Very smooth, very good, very good bourbon. So tonight, Old Forester in my bullet glass. Cheers to everybody who's watching and those who are going to look later on. Andy, Bill, Chrissy, thanks for showing up. Like I was telling everybody, if you're here late, I got a new camera, so hopefully the picture might be a little bit better. And the lighting, no digitizing in there, pixelating in that background area. So appreciate you guys being here. Like I said in the Facebook post, tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about how things have changed in law enforcement. And I thought I'd start off with a story, a funny story about me, just to kind of segue into that. So when I first started, that's probably, I know last week I told you I was shot at within the first month of being on the job or solo. And probably within the first 2, 3 months, uh, I was driving and it's probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I get behind a car and all of a sudden he changes lanes to an empty lane and then runs the red light. And I'm thinking, score. The FBI would call that a clue, like we say. So I follow him. He's going pretty fast, busting through some red lights. Now, mind you, this is back in the day when we had a pretty loose pursuit policy. I'm not pursuing him at this point, but I am following him. He's getting it up the road a pretty good clip and runs several more traffic lights. As he goes through one, he actually sideswipes a bus that's still out and about, picking up passengers and dropping off passengers. And it's about this time where my sergeant asks, "Hey, have you lit him up yet?" I said, "No, not yet." He says, "All right, light him up. If he doesn't stop, just break it off." So I get up behind him, light him up, and get to a point where he's not stopping. So shut it down. And there just happens to be a turnaround on the median. So as I get to the turnaround, the road we're traveling on is actually merges into another road and they're doing construction. So immediately all I see is a huge dust cloud. And then I see the car roll like 4 times. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Here we go. I'm not even 4 months on the job solo. And my career is over for chasing this guy. So obviously, I got to do something. I roll up to the crash scene. This guy is, by the time I get up there out of the car, I don't know if he's ejected or what. He's pretty vocal, and so fire gets there pretty quickly. Other agencies around the area show up because we were actually in a city at this point in their jurisdiction. So they were already out and about and they saw it. So this guy gets transported to the hospital, and I'm not even following. I'm still doing stuff at the scene and get to the hospital and go to the trauma room. And lo and behold, this guy is laying there on a ventilator. All right. Told you I'm already worried about my job. So now I'm even more concerned. Yeah. And my sergeant hits me up on the phone. Hey, have you got an update? I'm like, no, not yet. I'll let you know when I get something. So, they're all scurrying around and trying to work on this guy. And, I'm thinking, I'm fired. I'm at will. There's no way that the sheriff is going to let this stand. I'm screwed. And I was dying. And so finally they get done doing as much work as they were doing. And the doctor comes by and I was like, hey, doc, is he going to make it? And he goes, oh, yeah. And he was a hole when he got here and was creating such a scene that I juiced him up and knocked him out. So we're breathing for him right now. It's like, whew. So I was glad, my career hadn't ended before it started. So, and the thing that I wanted to use that story for to segue into is, I want to talk about the things that have changed in law enforcement. I don't know. Most of you guys that are on here, some of you are pretty young. I didn't have a computer when I started. Nothing. I mean, I couldn't run tags. So this guy, I didn't know what he was running for. I have no idea. Come to find out, suspended driver's license, but I couldn't have told him that. I was up, I wasn't looking at his car when we pulled up the traffic light. I was probably going to breakfast or something at 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, and probably a month after that, I had a computer that would only use the report writing program that we had. So, um, you know, I don't know how many of you guys are. I know Ed, if he's still here. we had to handwrite our reports. So some of you guys never even handwrote a report. So one of the things that changed, obviously, and has changed law enforcement entirely, is the computers that we're using now. It's amazing that the things that they can do on the computers, things you can look up, the things that with the new program at the sheriff's office. Although I hated the program, um, you run somebody and all the information that we had and this person from reports that have been written about this person over the years, we're in the system. Amazing. So, obviously, computers have rewritten the rules in law enforcement. For the things that we're able to do with those is just amazing at this point. And cameras, think about that. Body cameras. If we didn't have body cameras uh, for probably a good 19 of my 25 years at the sheriff's office. Maybe not that long, but it seemed like it. And I grew up in a time in law enforcement. Came up early in the late '90s, early 2000s, where wasn't uncommon for you to be able to get into a scuffle with somebody and brush them off and send them on their way without taking them to jail. Uh, you know, I won't call it paying at the pump. I never hurt anybody that I know of, but there were certainly times where you didn't necessarily have to take somebody to jail when you did it. So, um, and if we were in the day of body cams, obviously hook them and go. But I know one time I was in a place just trying to trespass some guy and leaned him up against my car. He was drunk. I was going over to get the trespass warning signed. He came off the car. I turned around, put him back up against the car. Hey, stay here. Went back, started to walk to get the trespass warning signed. Turn around, here he comes again. So I put him back on the car. Uh, Go to do it one more time, and finally I said, "Look, if you come off the car again, I can't tell you what's going to happen. It's not going to be good." So I turn around, sure, here he comes, follow me. So I grab him, redirect him to the ground, as we say, and he ended up cutting his nose on the ground, getting a little bit of gravel on his face, and so I picked him up, leaned him back up into the car, and there was a guy there that wasn't quite as long in his career as I was at that point, and I wasn't very long in my career. And he says, "What are you gonna do with him?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna trespass him and send him on his way." He's like, "His nose is bleeding. You mind if I call Sarge?" And I said, at that point, I was like, "Up, County, I got a 1015. He's gonna go to jail." So again, body cams changed that entire thing. And I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I mean, I know plenty of officers, deputies, including myself, that probably have been saved by the body cam video. People walk in to make a complaint, say, "Hey, this happened," and they go back and pull the body cam video up, and it didn't happen. And they go, "Okay, we watched the camera. You still want to make a complaint? So we'll take you to jail for lying to us." They go away. So body cams have changed us in a way, whether it's good or bad. They're here to stay. And obviously, the guys that are getting caught on body camera doing stupid things, yeah, it's I guess it's bad, too bad for you. You deserve what you get. But I think that it's more, good than bad at times. Now, obviously, and feel free to comment as you're on here, and I'll respond. Or these are just my opinions, obviously. But um, body cams can, depending on where you wear it, they don't show everything. And mine was on my shoulder, so if I turned my head to the left or to the right, the camera wasn't always getting what I was looking at. And so they're not necessarily a true and accurate depiction of what's going on, and can cause you some problems just because people watching it, juries, attorneys, taking a look at that stuff, and then they have no clue what's going on around you because they can't see it, and they judge you based on what they can see, not what you saw. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with in incidents where absolutely zero complaints from anybody, especially the bad guy, and people get hemmed up on video. Um, and it's an unfortunate thing. because a lot of these agencies, a lot, I know my agency had policy written, if a supervisor sees something in a video and, whether it's language, whether it's a policy, whatever the policy violation is, you end up getting in trouble for that because they have to do something. Yeah, Al, you're exactly right. Double edged sword. Um, I think we've probably saved more people than we've hurt with a video camera. But again, I guess it's based on where you're at and who you work for and, um, where their mindset is. Um, Again, Old Forester, just taking a sip. Um, yeah, I mean, just, looking at everything that goes on in today with the changes, especially, one of the things that I thought about recently, well, I think about it a lot because things are different. I still have guys that I talk to that were my supervisors or guys that I worked with way back in the day. But I can, in law enforcement, one of the things that has changed a lot, and a lot of you old guys are gonna probably think the same thing as me, is the camaraderie. It's just not the same business that it was when it comes down to the camaraderie. I'm trying to keep my face next to this microphone. Uh, so if you guys end up not hearing me or there's something wrong, just let me know. But back in the day, when I started, uh, we hung out all the time together. Yeah, I mean, we were, if it wasn't two or three of us, it was the entire squad. Whether we were having barbecues or meeting up at the bar. Um, I mean, I can remember. Uh, we're definitely old, Chris. We're definitely old. But I can remember my first squad as a sergeant. Our Christmas party. We kind of we actually had the party at like a restaurant. And then I mean, as soon as we were done eating, these guys were like, "All right, Sarge, we're out of here." And even if when I was younger in my career, if we had a party at a restaurant, we weren't done. You know, we hung out, we went places together, and these guys were just like, "Up, see ya." I'm headed to the club. And it just, I mean, and Chris, you may be right. It may just be my perception, and that's that's okay. I will tell you this: it would probably differ from place to place simply because you get into some units where, uh, like, it's a bunch of the old school guys. I mean, it's a bunch of the guys that you came up in the agency with. Just because somebody's got to die for for somebody else to get into that unit. Um, but it just seems more and more with this generation, they just are not about hanging out and getting together and stuff like that. And we tried a couple of times with the last group that I was with. Um, just didn't ever work out. I don't know. I don't know that the community is as tight as it once was. Um, but we talked a little bit about last week in the first unofficial trial run of this whole thing about some of the things that have changed as far as the way the cops are doing their jobs these days, especially in the last 4 years since in the aftermath of George Floyd and the pandemic, especially after George Floyd and the agencies, the administrations that decided that they were not about the bad press, and basically people were told in not so many words, because obviously you don't want anything written down or anything that can be followed up on. But hey, let's be careful about who we contact and when we contact. I mean, I talked about it. I talked about it in one of my pre-posts on TikTok, which I'm not really on too much anymore. But I talked about the Halloween shooting downtown Orlando, and taking a look at that. You can add. Look at the number of officers that were added to downtown Orlando over the years, between squads that were put down there and the numbers of off-duty officers that are put down there. And you can increase the numbers all you want, but if you're handcuffing the officers that are working down there, the deputies that are working these jobs, what are they supposed to do? When especially specifically when you think about that Halloween uh, incident, you know, the news conference, the first news conference after that, where the chief of police basically, well, he didn't insinuate. He actually said that the one of the reasons that it occurred was because of the new concealed carry law or constitutional carry law in the state of Florida, and that there's nothing they could do about him carrying a gun. Well, that's not necessarily. Well, that's actually not true in the case of this individual at all, because first of all, he didn't meet the criteria. He wasn't old enough to carry a firearm. So, your argument there is null and void. And this wasn't the first time that this guy carried a gun, I promise you. This guy had a gun on him probably every night of the week, wherever he went. And when agencies have hampered investigations by telling people, hey, let's not, dig too hard. Let's not go after these people that are doing bad things because we don't want something bad to happen and then us look bad on the news because we have to shoot somebody or somebody gets unalived or something like that. you know those Although those incidents are unfortunate, that's part of the job. And doing that is a necessary thing. This kid could have been stopped riding a bicycle with no lights on it. Somebody found that gun. Nobody gets killed that night. Nobody gets unalived. Sorry, Facebook, don't ban me. But those are the things we're talking about, is the little things. This guy driving 17-year-old driving a car around, and somebody does a traffic stop and finds a gun. Nobody gets hurt that night. Everybody walks away alive. Nobody gets injured at all because we found a gun and we took it off the street. So, you know, cops, it- it's rough on cops these days. Rough on law enforcement. You can't really, and don't get me wrong, I'm not here blaming cops at all. I'm not criticizing just to criticize. I'm criticizing to make things better. I'm not on here to bash people and talk bad about law enforcement. I had 23 uh, good years and a couple of bad years. So I enjoyed what I did. I was able to move around a lot and did a lot of different things in the agency. And so I'm not criticizing cops at all. There are cops out there that are doing their jobs, that are going out and making cases and finding bad guys, finding guns, finding drugs every day. And that's, commendable, because there's not a lot anymore. There's not a lot of guys that are out there doing that, and they're not being trained to do that because uh, we've got we've got to the point where we have a lot of report takers, guys that are going out, and we mentioned this last week. A lot of guys that are going out and sitting under a tree or at a restaurant, or I know supervisors that used to run squads from restaurants, but going out and doing the minimal to get by and taking reports and padding their stats, uh, but they're just not beating the bushes, and traffic. When I didn't have a computer, traffic was the perfect way to get into a car and find stuff. Tail lights, tag lights. People don't do that anymore. They run the tag, and if the driver's good, hey, good on you. See you later. Not pulling you over. Um, and there were times where without a computer, you get behind a car, a good looking car, and light it up. And if they pulled over, you just kept going, turn your lights off, and kept going. Because I don't know if any of you guys did that. Uh, Obviously, there's nothing wrong with them if they pulled over. We were looking for the guys that were going to run from us, because back in that day, that's what we did. We were ready to run. We would chase the wheels off of that car. So, um, it's a different world, and I get that we have to change over the course of time. But I will tell you this: I worked in plenty. I keep forgetting to get into this microphone, so I apologize. Um, I I worked in plenty of places where I was a supervisor, and we had a new supervisor for us come in, so somebody that outranked me. And people are notorious for changing things around. Hey, we're going to do it this way because this is the way I like to do it. And I know it's cliche, but you know, I was always a firm believer in, well, not in every instance, but in most instances. There's a reason why we do things the way we do it because it works. And somebody comes in and changes that, and all of a sudden we're doing it their way, and things get screwed up and they don't work out right. And then we got to go back several months later and try to rewind and fix everything um, that they screwed up. But don't get me wrong, I understand times change, tactics change. Um, but honestly, old school police work is not going to ever be a bad thing. Um, you know, Sitting blacked out somewhere and watching, that's the things that I love to do. And people just don't do that a lot anymore. There's just not a lot of people on the road specifically. Now there are specialty units that are out there doing things and hump and stuff like that, and getting bad guys off the street. But the road is not about that anymore. And so we've lost that where, for years, these guys weren't trained to do that. And so now they're training officers and they don't train to do that. They don't train their trainees to do that. So we've lost a period of a time. And like Andy, I don't know if Andy's still here, but Andy talked last week about, maybe this is the agenda in the long term is that, we've stopped training or we've stopped enforcing this kind of stuff so that we can stop training people to do this stuff so that we don't do this stuff in the future and we can appease the community or the government, whoever we're trying to appease. Um, let's see what Al is what Al's saying. Doing the minimum is what's happening a lot. Couple that with how short every single agency is on a personnel is a big factor. Also, it gives you less warriors to go out and find. That's you're exactly right, Al. And honestly, the issues we're having with recruiting and getting people to uh, come on to the agency to get hired by the agency, you know, some of that's been created by administrations. Um, I remember just, well, the agency that I worked for, most of you know where I worked. Almost everybody on here is from where I worked or I work with you and you know where I worked. Um, basically we're handing out applications at UCF. Here you go. When they get off the stage, here's an application. Valencia, here's an application. Seminole, here's an application. Uh, and we're hiring people that just have no idea about the real world. They've been in school for 22 years and they just don't have a clue what's going on out there. And, we were hiring those people or trying to hire those people left and right. And yet I have a friend that I don't know if he's watching tonight, but a friend on Facebook and a friend that I worked with from a different agency tried to get hired by the sheriff's office and wouldn't get hired. And why? Because he had visible tattoos at the time. And we weren't, and this guy's got years with the agency that he's with, and he's still with them. He has years at the time, and we weren't hiring him as a deputy sheriff because he had visible tattoos. But we're going to go out and grab a guy that's fresh out of college. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to sit on new hire boards when I was with the agency. And this is not, I'm not joking. This is an actual person who was hired by our agency. Uh, One of the questions on the interview or the pre-hire enter the board, it was to describe the most stressful experience that you've been in. Now, we're looking for, you guys know what we're looking for here. We want to know what they do under stress. And honestly, I don't know if this was the smartest guy in the world or what. I don't know if I mean, he's pretty bright because he tells us that he worked at Victoria's Secret during the Christmas holiday and they only had two registers open and there was a lot of crowd and he had to deal with making sure that the crowd was not getting out of hand because there were only two registers open at Christmas. Now he's either the smartest guy in the world because he's working at Victoria's Secret, or I don't know, but that's what we were hiring, and that goes to Al's point a little bit. Agencies are so short right now, and it's not just because uh, people are leaving, because people are leaving. There's a lot of toxic work environments right now, and I talk to people on a regular um, from different agencies, but specifically from the agency that I left, that I retired from, and man, it's just morale is low, and people are, it's toxic, and that's created by leadership, and we'll get well into leadership. Trust me, we'll get well into leadership on some of the later issues or later episodes of this. So hang in there because I'm going to talk to you about it. Leadership is a big thing for me. I don't uh, make any bones about it. You know, I can't remember who mentioned it last week, but somebody was talking about people. Oh, I think it might have been Mark DeBona mentioning where people are they forget where they come from once they make rank, and I never had that issue with myself. Because I worked everywhere I went. I worked as a deputy. I worked as a corporal. I worked as a sergeant. I was a working supervisor. I never, I took care of my people. That's a leader's job is to take care of their people. And that was kind of frowned upon. You know, I'm just gonna put it right out there and say it. They don't want you taking care of your people. Honestly, um, especially these days, man. A lot of people are looking to, make a name for themselves, and if you don't have blood on your hands, you don't get promoted. And people are willing to go out of their way to make sure that, um, man, they're looking for reasons, and that's a sad thing. And that's, in my opinion, that's changed over the course of. I don't know if it's at every agency. I know at my agency, we didn't. It wasn't always that way. You're getting 4 hours off for cursing on a video these days, and with no complaints. Again, nobody's complaining, but somebody somewhere watches the video and sees you drop an F bomb. 4 hours off. Here you go, language and behavior. And we had a sheriff that once told us, sometimes you have to use their vernacular in order to get a point across. And that's absolutely 100% true. Some people just don't listen until you talk to them at their level. They don't care. They don't hear you. They don't pay attention until you jump up and show a little bit of aggression. And sometimes that means you got to drop a few words. And today, that's catching you some time off, which is ridiculous. Let's see. Yeah, Andy, you're right. I mean, there's people that we have turned away um, because of tattoos, and that's the thing that's another thing that it's kind of changed in law enforcement. You're seeing it more and more other places than you are here locally. I don't know how it is right now at the agency I left. I know a year ago when I left, or maybe a couple of years, maybe it changed last year before I left. I don't know. But I know it was a temporary tattoo policy where we were going to take a look at it and see what happened. Honestly, people don't care when you show up at their door if you have a tattoo or not. You know, a great majority, well, I won't say a majority, but a great number of people who are civilians have tattoos, enjoy tattoos, go to the tattoo shop every day. And ultimately, most of those tattoos are not derogatory, demeaning to anybody. They're not obscene. They're just, I mean, you think about the military. Um, the military guys that get tattoos on their arms, nobody's offended by that. Well, almost nobody's offended by that stuff. Today, there's probably some offended people, some snowflakes, but ultimately, nobody cares when you show up at their door. As long as you show up at their door, when they call 911 or they call for a deputy or an officer, and one shows up, they don't care if they have tattoos or not. But we were turning people away, and probably will continue to turn people away until you get a sheriff or a chief or whoever that says, I don't care. I really don't care. I know there's agencies in South Florida where that's exactly what the head of the agency has said. I don't care if you have tattoos, as long as they're not offensive, we're gonna hire you. So, and Danny, yep, people get hired under a certain sheriff with tattoos, and then now you got to wear a long sleeve shirt because we don't want to see them, and they can't be bigger than a 3x5 card. They have to be able to be covered by a three by. I don't never understood that one. I don't know what that means. I really don't understand. Well, if your tattoo can be covered by a 3x5 card, you can have it. I don't know what that is. Um, so, but so much has changed, and not always in a good way in law enforcement. Um, you know, I uh, hate that we have come to a point where um, the media controls policy, and that's completely sad. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some policies that like our pursuit policy, had to change based on a death, and I get that. You know, when somebody steals some stuff or throws a rock through a window, even though it's a felony to throw a rock through a window somebody's house, um, you don't need to be chased for that. That's not a good thing. Um, but and here you go with Andy. Many of us have been able to avoid using force with using aggressive language. Not saying that dropping F bombs all day is acceptable, but sometimes telling someone to sit the F down is better than fighting them. And you're absolutely right. You can avoid fights like that, and as well as I do, most of you, have, the verbal judo or whatever, but most of you know that a lot of these guys are just testing you. They're just testing to see how far they can push you. And once they know that there's a limit to it, they back off. Most of them, I would say, back off and don't give you crap anymore because they realize that they stepped in it and work is about to be done. And well, that used to be the case. Again, things have changed. Uh, you know, it's frowned upon to get into a scuffle these days, and it's frowned upon to get to that point. We talked about um, the incident. I think we talked about it. I'm not sure. When we talked about a little bit about leadership last week. Well, I think we did. If we didn't, I'm going to mention it again. During the riots, um, or the demonstrations or the protests, whatever you want to call them, when my squad, pulled a female out of the car after she rolled her window up on a deputy's arm who was trying to open her door, made a lawful order to get out of the car. She refused. He reached inside to open the door and she rolled the window up on him and tried to drive away. We busted the window out and she stopped. We got her out of the car. And later on in the news, the head of the agency said that it was troubling. We were well within policy, well within the law to do what we did. Um, but the leader said it's troubling. And when you give up that ground, when an agency head gives up that ground to the citizens, to the media, and I'm not talking about going out there and violating people's rights. We didn't violate her rights. We were there lawfully. We did what we had to do lawfully, and she made poor decisions. When an agency gives up that kind of ground, it is difficult to get back. People are more and more willing to give you crap when they know that they can. I got a message from one of the guys that was on here last week and talking about when the policies and the agency and the deputies and the officers become indifferent to enforcing the law. And again, I'm not criticizing law enforcement officers as much as I am agencies who have created these policies. When people see that, they know nothing's going to be done. We showed the video last week of the guy standing on top of an Orange County K-9 car. Um, and by God, in past days, probably in my early days, and I know days before, because I've heard people talk about it, somebody would have stepped on the gas and that guy would have fallen onto the top of the car, and then we'd have hit the brakes, jumped out, and put him in jail. I mean, that's just the plain and simple about it. And that didn't happen. You guys watched. I mean, these deputies basically had to drive off. They were being surrounded by cars and people and street takeover, which apparently there's a street takeover. What's today? The 26th, maybe tomorrow. That's planned for Orange County. Um, and honestly, Al, you're right. In our day, it would have been handled. And that's what I was getting ready to say. Honestly, I don't think that the majority of the people out there who care for law enforcement would be upset about somebody handling that job today. People are tired of having to sit in traffic behind intersection takeovers, behind the four wheelers and the motorcycles that stop traffic to do their little antics, and try to create havoc on the roadways. And the reason they're doing it is because they're getting away with it. And honestly, here in Florida, the only people I've seen really do anything about it, and I have, again, it's not like I went out there and watched a bunch of videos, but I have seen videos where the Florida High Patrol is taking care of some things sometimes. And that's where we're at. I mean, honestly, heads of agencies and man staff and agencies have allowed this to go on so long. Again, we've given up the ground. We've given up the ground, guys, and it's hard to get it back. We just can't walk this back. The only thing to do is to move forward and to change the narrative, to change the direction, and get more aggressive in our policing. Again, I don't mean aggressive in violating people's rights and going out there and hurting people on purpose. I mean enforcing the law. Because these guys are afraid to do anything because they're afraid that they're not going to get backed up by their agency. And a lot of times they won't. A lot of times they won't get backed up by the agency. They're going to get hung out to dry. They're going to catch hours. They're going to catch discipline. It's just the way it is today. And I don't get it. I really don't, because it wasn't always that way. It really wasn't, and I'm not blaming it. I don't want to blame it on times changing, because I don't think that the times have changed. I don't know. Maybe January 20th, things change in this country, as far as administrations and agencies. Maybe they catch some sort of I don't know, brilliant idea, and they decide to change what they're thinking. I'm just trying to read some of your comments here. Nothing is worse than former chiefs of some small city PD who work for the news and paid to criticize officers. Yeah, and we're not, there's guys out there that do it, Andy. They're not, we're not. Some of these guys are in it for themselves, and they're not there to protect. And they're not there to protect people. They're not there to protect the image. And honestly, I'm proud that I was a law enforcement officer, and would protect it till the day I died. Don't get me wrong. I had some problems that were imposed upon me. And again, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I've accepted that. I know what it is. I know what it was. And people around me know what it was. And, that's just how it is. I was told by a supervisor, another supervisor who talked to a higher ranking supervisor, that they were coming after me before it ever happened. So I knew it was happening. It was an agenda, and I'm okay with that, because my integrity never came into question, and I can't say the same about some of these folks. So people that will criticize other law enforcement officers, the bad ones, I'm okay with it, you know, but there is not that I can think of another occupation in the country where when one cop does something bad, we all pay for it. That doesn't happen at Sam's Club. It doesn't happen at Walmart. One bad person doesn't ruin it for the entire Walmart staff. Um, so it shouldn't happen in law enforcement, but that's the way people are. And they put the badge on all of us, you're all crooked. I've had a bad experience with cops, so you're all bad. And yeah, I mean, it's where we're at, and it's a sad state. Um, you know, Hopefully either next week or January 9th, maybe next week. It depends on if I can get logged in to the actual Facebook Blue Truth and Bourbon Facebook page. Again, Old Forester, if you're drinking. Um, Maybe it'll be next week, and we'll talk about a little bit more about leadership, but basically the state of law enforcement today. Public perception, things that the public sees, people, things that they don't understand about law enforcement. The quick to judge. Let's they're putting the cart before the horse when you see a video and all of a sudden, they've already come to a conclusion on what's going on and what's wrong and what the cop did wrong, and instead of letting the facts play out, things like that. Um, might talk a little bit about sovereign citizens and my big pet peeve. Sovereign citizens don't bother me that much because there's easy ways to deal with them, but the people that I have issue with are these First Amendment auditors. We probably have an entire show on that, as much as they make me mad. So, um, next week, definitely for sure, or the week after, uh, talk a little bit about what's going on in law enforcement, the state of law enforcement. Um, Leadership will be a part of that, just because I think it's important to discuss the issues that are, and again, not criticizing to criticize. It's all over the country. We're probably going to talk a little bit, most likely, we'll talk a little bit about corruption, about uh, how power creates corruption sometimes. And the sheriff in Lee County, what's his name? Carmine Marceno, I think it is. He's embroiled in some ethics violations. I've read some of the stories, and we'll share those probably next week, week after, when we talk about leadership and things that go on. Man, some of these guys, they're all about themselves. You see it all over the country. It happens, and um, some of them are just so out of touch with the agency itself because they're so self-involved. Um, I talked to somebody recently who told me that somebody had a one-on-one, a sit down with the head of the agency, and told him about how bad morale was, and the head of the agency denied every bit of it. And that's just because they're so far out of touch, um, that it's just become toxic. And the punitive measures that have happened, uh, it's one thing if you've got an agency of rogue cowboys that are out there just creating havoc, going out and violating people's rights and doing stupid things. Man, I get it. Punish the mess out of them, get rid of them. But realistically, man, you know, is cursing on a video worth 4 hours off, or is that a situation for a supervisor to sit somebody down and go, "Hey, yeah, let's not do that," And then if it gets worse, then you start with progressive discipline. But man, we are punishing people. They are punishing people at agencies for stuff that we used to be able to just handle as supervisors. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, why do, in my opinion, and these are just my opinions, guys. I think you know, the heavy hand is to show people, I got you, and I'm going to run the way things are done. And you're not going to go out there and do the things that I don't want you to do, even if those are good things, guys. Even if you're out there doing the right thing, uh, you can get hemmed up because the agency isn't going to back you. Now, there's guys, you know, out there in the agencies that agree with you, ranking guys, lieutenants, captains, what have you. There's those guys out there. They agree. They're not saying nothing because they're looking out for themselves. And I get it. You know, if you're not deep enough in and you can't get out, can't retire, you can't get a walk away from a toxic environment. I get it. It's hard. You know, if you're 3 years in, it's easy to go to another agency. If you're 22 years in and you got to do 25, man, you got to, sometimes you got to break down and sit there and suck it up and hope you get through and hope it doesn't happen to you. Hope it doesn't come into your doorstep because you can get tied up in somebody else's stuff. It's happened. Watched it. Saw it happen. Let's see some of our comments. Let's see. I hate to keep picking on the same people, but they have some good comments. Most of the time, law enforcement does something foolish due to poor or no training, lack of leadership, or a big one is overstressed. Yeah. Um, we don't expect our military to go harm's way without years of training. We're going to talk about some. I don't know if you guys saw Blake Cook's interview with on the Sean Ryan show, but we're going to talk about that when we talk about leadership. We're also going to talk about it when we talk about PTSD and mental health and law enforcement because he has some great stuff. Blake Cook, I don't know if you know him, former military, former police officer. He's heavy into training now. Um, Never met him, but seems like a great guy. And that's Andy. What you're saying there is exactly what he's saying. You know, talking about law enforcement officers deployed for 20, 25 years without a break. And that's exactly what Blake Cook says. You know, talks about tier one operators that, they at least they get to, come back home and take a break before they go back out. And I'm not taking anything away from them because those are the guys are the baddest of the bad. They know what they're doing, but they get to come home and take a break. And these law enforcement officers, we don't get an opportunity to walk away. Even on a day off, you got to go shopping and you can run into somebody that you know or that knows you. And that's unfortunate. Let's see some more comments here. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Jay, you're right. Um, it's, you know, again, you say it's politics. I agree with you. Um, I said it last week. Unfortunately, a lot of these folks that are in positions of power have a passion for power and not for people. And that's the problem. Regardless, I used to tell the people that work for me, hey, I'm going to stand by you to the bitter end if you're right. And we're going to fight for you. And we're going to handle it. And sometimes we're going to handle it with discipline. But at the end of the day, uh, we're going to go have a cup of coffee afterwards and it's going to be over. That's just how it is. That's how I handled things. Because I have and had a passion for the people that work for me, not my position. I was never, you know, my position only mattered when all hell broke loose. When stuff hit the fan and it was time for me to be the supervisor, that's when my position mattered. Other than that, my patch said deputy sheriff. So unfortunately, um, you know, some people don't understand that. They don't believe it. And you're right. You're right, Andy. I've said that on here. I've said that on, my Facebook page. If you guys are personal friends of mine on my Facebook, there's a difference between being a leader and a supervisor. I fully believe that. And I am in the process not quickly at all, but contemplating writing a book about leadership from my experiences, from the viewpoint of someone who, in my opinion, was a servant leader. People that I admire that are servant leaders, not supervisors. And I knew plenty of supervisors. I knew lots of supervisors. Yeah, Danny, you're right. Um, People are protecting themselves, and that's unfortunate. Um, because I want you to protect yourself, but not the way that these guys are doing it. And I don't know. These leader or these supervisors that have a high rank. Um, Again, no passion for people. It's that position that means everything to them. If I wanted to rattle off names, I could rattle off some names, and most of you know them. And I don't, I don't understand it. And it's not I forgot where I came from, because a lot of those guys have never really been leaders, so they didn't lose it. They never had it. Um, Danny, yeah, leading by example. I shared last week when we talked about it. If you've seen the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson, and it's about Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore at the time in Vietnam, telling people, hey, and I told my people this, I'm going to be right there beside you. He said, I'll paraphrased, I'll be the first one whose boot hits the ground when we get there, and my boot will be the last one to leave it. And it's how I've tried to be, or how I tried to be my entire career. I didn't become a sergeant so that I could boss people around. And, you know, I became a sergeant, or took the sergeant's exam to become a sergeant, so that I could continue to teach, so that I could continue to bring people along. If you're not a leader who's making other leaders, what are you doing? You're just in the way. You're holding people back. You're keeping people down. And like I told you last week, people are great at. Um, there's only a few people that are in charge of your career. You're not in charge of your career. You never are. It's the people that are above you, and you make one of them mad, and it's over. I had a very high ranking person tell me, um, "Hey, your name goes across the sheriff's desk or is mentioned in the meetings every time. I don't understand why you're not getting the call." And a lot of people have their their opinions of why I never got the call. I certainly have my opinions, uh, but I always took care of my people, and I always spoke my mind, and that's my opinion. That's why I didn't get promoted, because they didn't like that I spoke my mind. And I even asked a high ranking member one time, "Am I wrong? Am I wrong in my opinion? Am I wrong when I speak my mind?" No, it's just not what people want to hear. This guy told me, "Steve, you wear your heart on your sleeve, and that's a good thing because people know where you stand, and that's a bad thing because people know where you stand." And I agree 100% with that. If people know where you stand, it's easy to keep you from moving on. Um, but my integrity was never called into question. I was the same from day one till day whatever it was at the end of 25 years. I just was who I was. And if you know me, you know that. I just, I never thought that I was better than anybody, more important than anybody. I never wanted to be. I just wanted an opportunity to lead people. I have two uncles, and my father are retired from law enforcement. Um, I just wanted to be an example. That's all I ever wanted. So I don't need, uh, you know, accolades. I don't need somebody to pat me on the back. I often tell people, and I don't know if this will get me in trouble on Facebook or not, or wherever, Instagram or YouTube, but um, you guys can write this down. You can use it. It's not copyrighted. I didn't make it up. But hard work, I always tell people hard work is like pissing yourself in a dark blue suit. It makes you feel good, but nobody notices. And that's just how it is. Uh, that's how you have to live, in my opinion, live your leadership is that you're going to do a lot of things and you're going to say a lot of things and you're going to work hard and people aren't going to notice. And that's okay because there are people who notice. I told the day I left the agency, like I said, I had some things happen to me. I was no longer a sergeant. And I told the people in that decided to show up to my send off, uh, folks, people are going to remember more about how you treated them than what you did at this agency. You can do 25 years of great stuff. And if you treated people horrible, they're going to remember that. But if you treated people with respect and took care of them and worked alongside of them, not supervised them, but led them, people will remember that. And I'm humbled, you know, on a regular basis, especially towards the end of my career, and even now. But there's people who refuse to call me anything but Sarge, and I'm like, hey, my name's Steve. I don't, you know, but people respected what I did and what I said, and that is in my, you know, 25-year career. That is the thing that meant the most to me. Leaving was that I knew people that were out there that I had touched and that had, whose lives I had helped or people that I had made better, become leaders. That's all that mattered to me. So, you know, over the course of 25 years, the changes that took place, the changes that went on in this, in law enforcement, um, we all got to change with the times. Um, Things are going to be bad, changes are going to be bad, changes are going to be good. But ultimately, it's about who you are and what you do. And, that's important for the folks that are still there. You know, you have to treat people right. So, um, Patty, thanks for showing up. Uh, I don't know, kind of running out of stuff, guys. I'm not really running out of stuff, but just everything that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about, we've kind of covered tonight. If you have any comments or any suggestions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. A couple things here I'll pop up before but I'm not ready to run away yet. But Facebook, there you go. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. That's our Facebook, my Facebook page. Remember that. It's not hard to remember. Blue Truth and Bourbon Podcast. On Instagram, that's where you can find us. YouTube at Blue Truth Bourbon Podcast. And here's my email address. If you have any suggestions for topics, you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit me up. I don't shy away from criticisms. So, whatever you got, don't be afraid to tell me because I want to get better at this. I want to give you guys some entertainment. I want to give you guys some education. Definitely, I would love if you guys would suggest this. Especially, I'm not talking about my page specifically, but the Facebook page, the Blue Truth and Bourbon podcast page. If you have them join that, if you enjoy what I do, I'm not very entertaining, I don't think, but this is fun for me. And the younger guys, I'd definitely love to reach out and educate them from my experience and help them through a career, especially as we get into talking about mental health and PTSD and stuff like that. I really want people to pay attention to that because I learned the hard way about reaching out. I didn't have a choice because of things that happened, and you know my life was, I won't say my life was in shambles, but I had issues, and so I want people to reach out and find a resource. So we'll talk a lot about that. What was I going to say? Oh, just end it with a story, I guess. Tell you a little story about, and hopefully, Chrissy, here's to you. Thank you. We're gonna, like I said, Old Forester. We showed a video of what I show Buffalo Trace. So I'm gonna hopefully recommend some more bourbons to you if you like to drink bourbon. I'm gonna try to have a different one every week. Um, but a story to end it with. It's kind of a funny one, and this will tell you how long ago it was because it occurred. It was a robbery at an Eckerd Drugs. I would venture to say that at least half of you that are watching, maybe not half, a lot of you guys are old, like me, probably don't remember what Eckerd Drugs was. Um, but we had a robbery, Eckerd Drugs. I pulled up within minutes of the guy leaving, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. I'm at the front door. So obviously we got people coming. This guy took off on foot. Uh, they're out there setting a perimeter. Guy took off on foot. Canine gets there. I won't mention the canine officer's name, canine deputy's name, because some of you know him. Uh, but he gets there, and I'm running with canine. I was skinny back in that day, so I could run with canine. Today, I need, I don't know, we have a specific canine. I was running with, this is a sidebar, running with canine one time, this other officer, deputy, and we're walking, and I said, "Is he gonna pick up the scent? Are we?" He goes, "No, dude, he's on it. I've trained him. This is how we track. We walk." I was like, "Yes, sir. That's what I like. I could do that today." But anyway, canine deputy gets there. I'm running with canine, and I guess it's okay if I can mention the streets. I'm not. I just anyway. This is at Lee Road and I-4 for those of you who are familiar with Winter Park, Orange County. Lee Road and I-4, Eckerd Drugs. So we get on the track and we track west to Lead and Addison. And we go down Addison. And if you're familiar with the area, Addison's pretty long road between Lee Road and Fairbanks. We walked all the way down Addison. We turned west again on Fairbanks. We went a little farther on Fairbanks, and I turned to the canine deputy and I said, "You really think he walked all this way to do a robbery? Because I don't think people really walk this far to do a robbery." So we, hey Bill, we walked all the way back to the Eckerd Drugs, let the dog rest, and then it wasn't an in-town suites at the time, but there's our hotel. I think I don't even know if it's an in-town suites today, but it's right next door to where the Eckerd Drug was, Eckerd Drugs, and this he recast the dog. The dog walks next door to this hotel, hopped up on the trunk of a car in front of a room. Ultimately, at some point, we end up making contact with the guys in the room. And sure enough, those are the guys that's the guy that committed the robbery. I mean, dog jumped up on the trunk of the car. And I'm like, we just tracked for 45 minutes the opposite direction. And when he recast him, it was 45 seconds. Dog jumped up on the car. It was amazing to me. I got a ton of them. I got a ton of them like the same. I'll tell you another one about the same. Well, I got two more. I'll just tell you one more real quick, and we'll get out of here. Same canine deputy shows up. We got a burglary to a school. Um, Canine gets there. I don't know how long after the burglary, but they stole a TV and they were gone on foot. And he gets there and tracks to the east into Orlando police jurisdiction, into an apartment complex. Uh, at some point, the dog stops in the complex and he's like, "Yeah, they definitely came this way." The dog's indicating, he's like, "Oh, I always make fun of it. It's like, oh, yeah, they took right here, smoked cigarettes, drink a couple beer, took a crap right here, that kind of thing." Um, and then he continues to the east. A couple minutes later, we get a phone call from somebody. Dispatch comes over and goes, "Just so you guys know, the person is reporting that two people just threw a fence over their backyard to the west, 3 blocks west of where the school is." I don't know. Seemed like the dog was notorious for going the opposite direction. Same deputy. I don't know if it was his fault or the dog's fault, but it's funny to me. So, guys, I appreciate you hanging out. I'm hoping that this worked on the other. You know what? I probably could have looked and seen if this is still working on. Yeah, I don't know if it's working or not on the other pages, but yeah, I've enjoyed being here tonight. I've enjoyed having you guys here. Hopefully, you'll come back for more. Hopefully, next Thursday, maybe I can go live again. Oh, I meant to say it before. Merry Christmas. Hopefully, everybody had a good Christmas yesterday. These things, the ring and the camera and the ring light, uh, added yesterday. So hopefully, today's video was a little bit better. And hopefully, I'm getting a little bit better at talking. If not, oh well, don't hang out. It's up to you. No, I love you. Appreciate you being here. Hopefully we're up again next week. And again, let me see where I'm at on the. Let's go here. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Sorry. Here's the email address again. Jot that down. If you have any comments, concerns, complaints, the complaint department is already set up to automatically discard any emails that come in. So, but anything you want to hear, anything you want me to talk about, things that you want to hear. I had a suggestion earlier tonight about women in law enforcement, and that's definitely on the agenda. So just so you know, at some point there's going to be a an episode with special guests for women in law enforcement. So stay tuned for that, and there'll be some other things that we talk about. So hopefully enjoy it. Here's to everybody that watched tonight. Old Forester. Hopefully, you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next Thursday.